Steve McQueen sat in his trailer with a ruler, pencil, and calculator, counting every single word Paul Newman spoke in the Towering Inferno script. Hollywood's king of cool had discovered that the blue-eyed legend had exactly 12 more lines of dialogue, and he was about to shut down production at 20th Century Fox until the universe was balanced again. What happened next would create Hollywood's most legendary ego battle and change how stars were billed forever. The trailer doors slammed with the sound of wounded pride meeting, immovable determination. If you respect the real Steve McQueen, subscribe to Steve McQueen Untold Legacy, 1974, 20th Century Fox Studios, Los Angeles, California. The sprawling lot where Hollywood's biggest disasters were manufactured under controlled conditions that eliminated actual danger while preserving authentic terror. The Towering Inferno was being filmed across multiple sound stages, designed to create the illusion of a 138-story skyscraper without requiring anyone to actually build or burn down a building of that magnitude. Producer Irwin Allen's domain stretched across acres of carefully constructed chaos, where special effects wizards created fires that looked deadly but wouldn't kill anyone, explosions that looked devastating but wouldn't destroy anything valuable, and emergency situations that looked desperate but were managed by teams of professionals whose job was keeping expensive actors alive while they pretended to be in mortal danger. The actor trailers were positioned like a small city outside the sound stages, each one reflecting the hierarchy and requirements of performers whose combined salaries exceeded the gross national product of most developing nations. Some trailers were modest mobile homes that provided basic comfort between scenes. Others were elaborate temporary palaces that included gyms, kitchens, and offices where business was conducted between takes. Steve McQueen's trailer was functional rather than luxurious, equipped with the kind of Spartan efficiency that reflected his background and priorities. A place for staying in shape, reviewing scripts, and maintaining the physical and mental conditioning that his approach to acting demanded. No unnecessary comforts, no impressive decorations, just professional tools arranged for maximum utility. But today, McQueen's trailer had been transformed into something that looked more like an accountant's office than an actor's retreat. Script pages were spread across every available surface, covered with pencil marks, measurements, and calculations that would have impressed mathematical professors. A ruler lay beside sheets of paper filled with tallies that recorded data most actors never bothered to quantify. Steve McQueen, 44 years old, sat hunched over this paperwork like a general planning military strategy, his pale blue eyes scanning numbers with the intensity he usually reserved for motorcycle racing or stunt coordination. His jaw was set in the expression that had made him famous for playing men who didn't compromise, and today that expression was focused on discovering exactly how much dialogue Paul Newman had been given compared to his own allocation. For 3 hours, McQueen had been conducting what amounted to forensic analysis of the script that was supposed to showcase both actors equally as co-stars in Hollywood's most expensive disaster film. Every word had been counted, every speech had been measured, every exchange had been evaluated according to mathematical standards that left no room for interpretation or argument. The results were unacceptable. Paul Newman had been given 12 more lines of dialogue. 12 lines that represented not just additional screen time but implicit acknowledgement of superior status in a production that was supposed to treat both actors as equals. In McQueen's understanding of Hollywood hierarchy, those 12 lines were equivalent to a public declaration that Newman was the real star and McQueen was merely the supporting attraction. This could not be tolerated. A knock on the trailer door interrupted McQueen's calculations with timing that suggested someone had been monitoring his activities and decided that intervention was necessary before the situation escalated beyond diplomatic resolution. "Steve, you in there?" The voice belonged to someone from the production office, probably carrying messages from people who preferred not to deliver them personally. "I'm here, but I'm not coming out until this gets fixed." "What needs fixing?" "The script. Newman's got 12 more lines than me. Nobody goes back to work until that gets balanced." Silence from outside the trailer. followed by whispered conversation that McQueen couldn't quite hear but could definitely interpret. Someone was calling someone else, probably multiple someone else's, to report that production's most expensive actor had discovered a problem that threatened to shut down filming until it was resolved to his satisfaction. 20 minutes later, Paul Newman knocked on McQueen's trailer door with the casual confidence of someone who'd heard about the situation and decided to handle it personally rather than waiting for intermediaries to fail at diplomatic solutions. "Steve, it's Paul. Mind if we talk about this?" McQueen opened the door to reveal his trailer's transformation into mathematical battlefield. Script pages and calculations spread everywhere like evidence in a criminal investigation. Newman took in the scene with expression that mixed professional respect with barely concealed amusement. "Jesus, Steve, you actually counted every word?" "Every word. Every line. Every syllable. You've got 12 more lines than me." Newman stepped into the trailer, his presence immediately filling the small space with the kind of relaxed authority that had made him famous for playing characters who remained calm under pressure. At 49, he carried himself with the confidence that came from years of proven success and industry respect that transcended box office receipts to reach something like institutional authority. And that's a problem because we're supposed to be co-stars. Equal billing, equal treatment, equal respect. Those 12 lines say that somebody thinks you're more important than me. Newman sat down across from McQueen, his movements carrying none of the tension that radiated from his co-star like heat from an engine running too hot. "Steve, you really think 12 lines of dialogue determine who's more important in a $165 million movie? I think every detail determines how the audience perceives the characters and the actors playing them. You get 12 more lines. Audiences unconsciously understand that your character is more significant than mine. Or maybe audiences understand that different characters serve different functions in the story, and some functions require more exposition than others." McQueen gestured toward the script pages covered with his meticulous calculations, evidence that couldn't be disputed or explained away through appeals to artistic necessity. "Paul, I didn't get where I am by accepting different functions when I was promised equal treatment. And where exactly did you get?" "To the point where I don't have to accept second-class status from anyone, including blue-eyed pretty boys who think classical training makes them better actors than people who learned the business through necessity rather than choice." The insult was delivered without particular malice, just factual observation from someone who measured people according to standards that had nothing to do with formal education or conventional career paths. Newman understood that McQueen was revealing something about their fundamental differences in background and approach. "Steve, are you seriously suggesting that my acting training is a disadvantage compared to your reform school experience?" "I'm suggesting that your training taught you to accept direction and work within systems designed by other people. My experience taught me to create my own opportunities and demand respect, rather than hoping someone would give it to me. Both valuable for different kinds of roles and different kinds of careers. Maybe, but only one of them produces actors who count their lines to make sure they're getting equal treatment." Newman smiled with genuine appreciation for McQueen's honesty about his competitive motivations, understanding that beneath the mathematical obsession was someone who'd learned to fight for everything he'd achieved, rather than assuming it would be provided through institutional fairness. "Okay, Steve. Let's say you're right about the 12 lines. What exactly do you want to happen?" "I want the script revised so that we have exactly the same number of words. Not approximately the same, not roughly equivalent, but mathematically identical dialogue allocation. And if that's not possible without damaging the story, then we change the story until it becomes possible." I didn't sign up to play second fiddle to anyone, including actors whose reputations were built on looking good in color photography. Color photography? Those blue eyes, Paul. Great for magazine covers, great for charming interviewers, great for making audiences think you're trustworthy and sympathetic. But blue eyes don't make you a better actor than people who had to learn to be convincing through skill rather than natural advantages. Newman understood that McQueen was expressing something deeper than professional jealousy. This was about fundamental differences in how they'd achieve success and what that success meant in terms of industry respect and audience connection. Steve, do you think audiences prefer actors who look trustworthy and sympathetic, or actors who look like they've earned their toughness through experience? I think audiences can tell the difference between performed toughness and authentic toughness, and they respond more honestly to authenticity, even when it's less comfortable than fantasy. And you think your approach produces more authentic performances than mine? I think my approach serves characters who need to convince audiences that they could handle real situations rather than just looking good while handling fake ones. Newman nodded with understanding that came from years of working with actors who brought different backgrounds to similar challenges, both necessary for complete range of storytelling possibilities. Maybe, but this movie requires both our approaches working together as equals, not one of us supporting the other's vision of heroism. Which brings us back to the 12 lines. Which brings us back to mathematical equality that serves dramatic balance rather than personal ego. Newman stood up, his decision-making process complete. Steve, I'll talk to Irwin about evening out the dialogue. Not because I think it matters to audiences, but because it obviously matters to you, and this movie needs both of us committed to making it work. Just like that? Just like that. Professional courtesy between equals, even when those equals measure equality differently. McQueen began gathering his script pages and calculations, understanding that he'd achieved his objective through direct confrontation rather than diplomatic negotiation. Paul, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think I'm being unreasonable about this? Newman considered the question with the thoughtfulness that characterized his approach to all serious topics. I think you're being protective of something you've worked hard to achieve and don't want to see diminished through careless decision-making by people who don't understand what it cost you to get here. And you think that's unreasonable? I think it's honest. Most actors pretend they don't care about billing and dialogue allocation while secretly obsessing about both. You're at least open about your priorities. Different approaches to the same insecurities? Different strategies for handling the same fundamental challenge of maintaining respect in a business that's constantly testing whether you deserve what you've achieved. As Newman prepared to leave the trailer, he turned back for final observation that would influence how both men understood their relationship for the remainder of the production. Steve, for what it's worth, I never thought of this as a competition between us. I thought of it as an opportunity for two different kinds of screen presence to complement each other. And now? Now I understand that you see every professional situation as a test of whether you're getting the respect you've earned. That's not wrong, but it's different from how I approach the same situations. Both valid for different reasons. Both necessary for maintaining authenticity in a business that rewards people for pretending to be someone else. The script revisions were completed within 24 hours, ensuring that both actors spoke exactly the same number of words in scenes that served the story, while satisfying McQueen's mathematical requirements for equality. The billing issue was resolved through innovation that would become industry standard, staggered billing, that placed Newman's name on the left but lower, McQueen's name on the right but higher, creating visual balance that acknowledged both actors, equal status without favoring either. Years later, when film historians analyzed the Towering Inferno's success, they noted that the creative tension between its two leads had produced performances that served the story better than either actor might have achieved working alone. McQueen's intensity balanced Newman's accessibility, creating dynamic that made audiences believe both men were genuinely heroic while serving different functions in the same dramatic situation. The 12-line crisis had revealed important truths about professional ego, competitive motivation, and the different ways successful people protected achievements they'd worked decades to attain. Both men learned something valuable about each other's approaches to the business that had made them wealthy and famous, while demanding constant vigilance against circumstances that could diminish what they'd built. Subscribe to Steve McQueen Untold Legacy for stories they never told you.